Hello, folks. I'm Josh McGee here with another episode of the Gateway to Soccer Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, it has been a minute. I hope everyone is doing okay, whether you're watching back home in St. Louis or wherever you may be watching here. I know it's been a while. I myself am doing pretty good here in Fayette. We just wrapped up fall sports season at Upper Iowa. Winter sports season is upon us. Excited to continue on with my second and final year here at Upper Iowa. Again, like I said, hopefully everyone is doing well. The temperature is starting to go down just a little bit, starting to get chilly here over the past couple weeks. Usually that doesn't mean that a World Cup is upon us, but this isn't like any other of the previous years. World Cup 2022 in Qatar, just a few days away. Sunday morning, it's going to be Qatar versus Ecuador to open things up. A lot different. It's been an interesting build up to this tournament, but still, it's a World Cup. Everyone is excited. The U.S. are back involved. So many different contenders. So I thought it would be a good idea to, again, dust off the YouTube channel here and get back into it with a World Cup preview. What's going to happen here is I'm going to break down each team from each group, talk a little bit about how they are coming into this tournament, expectations, how I think they will do, and I'll wrap it all up with my picks, of course. So again, folks, sit back and relax, enjoy here as I break down these upcoming groups for the 2022 FIFA World Cup. But before I do that, I do want to get into, again, the overall storyline of this World Cup. Like I said, extremely weird to be having a World Cup here starting in November and ending in December. The build's been different because it's been nearly impossible, right? Club seasons currently going on. Now they're going to be put on hold as we get this World Cup underway. We've had different situations with players having to drop out due to injury. That is normally not so much the case in the summer. There's enough recovery time built in for players to kind of adjust to that schedule. Not so here, as they are freshly coming off of the first few months of the club season. And of course, just the overall backdrop of playing in Qatar, a country that is known for its terrible human rights, policy or track record, I should say, how this World Cup was awarded, just some of the other, small incidents that we've seen with media coming in. And it's interesting because this is kind of what Qatar wanted, right? They wanted the world to come in. They wanted the world to see their country and how they do things and things like that. So I don't know what they were to suspect when it came to everybody else, coming there for the World Cup. So no, it's not great. Obviously, the timing, the structure, what the country stands for, all of that jazz. I mean, we did this just a little bit with Russia a few years ago, right? So unfortunately, that is part of the story. You can't get past it. But again, when it comes to the soccer, we're just kind of looking for something to enjoy here, and hopefully this tournament goes off without a hitch. I've been seeing some of the nice, little protests that some teams are planning on going into this tournament. I know the U.S. is going to be involved. I've seen some other European countries involved. I think that's stellar. Hope to see a lot of that as well. Because again, Qatar basically asked for us, and you can't get the World Cup the way they did and not expect some pushback here. So it's definitely a big part of things, but hopefully, again, we can go forward with an exciting World Cup. So here we go. Got to start off with Group A and breaking down all of these groups ahead of the 2022 FIFA World Cup. So starting off in Group A, of course, we got to look at the host nation in Qatar. This is, of course, a team that's been pretty much an unknown for a while until, of course, the awarding of the World Cup. We saw a glimpse of them at the Gold Cup just a few years ago. This is a team made up of players entirely of guys who play locally, who play in Qatar, including their captain, Hassan Al-Haydos, and 26-year-old forward Almoyez Ali, who was their leading scorer at the 2019 Asian Cup, played a big role for them. But again, for the most part, this is kind of an unknown team. And really the big question going in is, can their recent tournament success, at the Gold Cup, they were pretty good. The Asian Cup, of course, was a big win. Can that success and, of course, the home crowd translate to them advancing to the group stage? You got to go back to South Africa, of course, in 2010 for a team that didn't advance out of the group stage that was the host. Qatar is trying to avoid becoming the second team to do so. It's going to be a tough task. This is a pretty tough group. And again, just because of the players and their lack of experience elsewhere going up against top competition in the world, it's going to be tough. But who knows? Again, the crowd's going to lean heavily in their favor. This first match versus Ecuador is going to be extremely important. They're a little bit of an unknown in this tournament. I don't think they have any long-term prospects, but in terms of getting out of the group stage, especially with some recent news this week that I'll get to just a few teams here in a moment, they could potentially get out of this group. But in terms of just, building off of that previous success, I think it will be a little bit difficult for them, despite the fact that they are the host. Up next, taking a look at Ecuador from South America. This is a team that has seen a lot of veterans, kind of retire and move away from the team. They still got somebody like an Ener Valencia, former West Ham United striker, in this team. But this is a team primarily made up of younger players, or a group of players that have had some success at the youth levels and are starting to make an impact on the first team. Again, they had a third place finish at the 2019 Under 20 World Cup, and a lot of those guys have now jumped on to this team. You think about someone like a Moses Caicedo from Brighton, who's a bright young player who really, helps out in the midfield. This is a team that's very energetic. They're going to, go up and down the pitch, really take it to you on both ends. And they did pretty good in Common Bowl their qualifying. So this is a team, again, this is a group that maybe one team in particular stands out a little bit ahead of the pack, but not by much. And everybody else is kind of on an even playing field. So Ecuador, if they're able to find a way to pick up an early result versus Qatar, that could set themselves up by potentially getting them out of the group. But this is a team, again, a lot of youth, but they've had success in some big tournaments. We're going to see if that translates over to this particular World Cup this time around. All right, next up, I want to talk about who I think is the class of this group, and that would be the Netherlands. I say that because I think this time around, the Dutch finally have the defense to back up their free-flowing style of play. You think about the list of defenders that they have at their disposal. Starts off with Virgil van Dijk, of course, finally, relatively healthy going into a major tournament. I know that's not been the case past few times for the Netherlands, but he leads a group of fantastic defenders. You think about someone like a Nathan Aki from Manchester City. Think about Matthias de Ligt from Bayern Munich. Then you think about someone like a Jurrien Timber from Ajax. A lot of guys that they can deploy in this three in the back system that Louis Van Gaal likes to implement, and they finally have got the horses back there to lock things down. They don't have that true number one goalkeeper anymore. Jasper Cillessen didn't make the roster for this World Cup. He's getting up there in age anyway, but whoever is starting in goal for the Dutch, they're going to have a pretty good defense in front of them. You also think about someone like a Denzel Dumfries out wide as a wingback who can really push things from that midfield. Then, of course, you got someone like a Frankie de Jong in the midfield as well. He's had a little bit of a turbulent, club career as of late since making that big money move to Barcelona, but still, fantastic young player. Memphis Depay, once he gets healthy, of course, is the talisman up front. I don't know if he's going to be healthy for this first game, though, versus Senegal. That could be a big problem, depending upon, again, what the rest of the team can offer. But once he gets going, I think the Dutch are going to be quite okay. They're on a pretty good run of form. Again, like I said, I'm a lot more confident in them just because of the defensive players they have at their disposal this time around. So definitely look out for the Dutch here to make it out of the group and potentially pick up an extra win as they go into the knockout rounds. But we'll get that here in just a little bit. Then lastly, in Group A, we have Senegal. Now, even despite recent reports from yesterday, I still think Senegal boasts the most talent from any African team going into this World Cup. Starts at the back in goal with Edouard Mendy. I know he hasn't been 100% healthy for Chelsea this season, but of course, his track record, how great he is, that's a pretty good number one goalkeeper to have. Then you think about someone, speaking of Chelsea, you got Kalidou Koulibaly. Again, someone who's maybe been a little inconsistent, but still made the big money move to Chelsea there in the offseason. This is a guy with a lot of experience, also playing for Napoli and Serie A, who can provide sturdy presence there at the back. You got Idrissa Gueye, formerly of PSG, and of course of Everton, Abdou Diallo from RB Leipzig. There are a lot of guys on this team that can really help out Senegal and potentially push them out of the group stage. But of course, there's a big problem. The news broke just yesterday that Sadio Mane, of course now of Bayern Munich, formerly of Liverpool, who had gotten hurt, was a doubt potentially to make the roster. He was included in the roster by Senegal for this World Cup, but it came out that he does need surgery for this injury that he's picked up, and he will miss the entire World Cup roster. That is huge. Mane is the guy up top there for Senegal. He gets that offense going. Everybody else plays off of him. Not to have him for this World Cup, I think, is a crucial blow to Senegal's chances, not just of making an impact, but just getting out of the group. First match there versus the Netherlands, and you don't have Mane to start things out. That's a little bit of troubling for Senegal. Again, they've got some guys. They can provide a pretty good defense with the setup that they have, but not to have Mane, I think goal scoring is going to be a little bit of an issue. I had this team getting out of the group stage with Mane. Without him, I'm not so sure that they will be able to do so. Moving over to Group B, of course, this is the group that a lot of people's eyes are going to be on, whether you're, the United States or a lot of my English friends that I know who will be keeping up with England. But first up, I want to talk about Iran. This is going to be an interesting part of this group. Again, everybody's kind of writing them off in terms of being a contender to get out of Group B. But you have to look back to 2018. They only conceded twice in a group that included Spain and Portugal. This is going to be a difficult team to break down. Of course, on the other end, who's going to supply the goals? Think about someone like Amedi Taremi from FC Porto. Of course, Jekanabash there, formerly of Brighton, a guy who used to be the guy for Iran for over the course of the last few years. He's getting up there, though, a little bit in age. Can those guys, along with a few others, provide enough goals for a team that's going to look to try to, pick up results in low-scoring games? Again, against teams like England and the US, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Wales, a little bit more pragmatic in their style, but I wouldn't say that you can completely write off Iran in this group. You never know, of course, as well, just from location and journal, they're going to have a lot more fans at these matches than they normally would. Something to keep an eye out for here. So don't completely write off Iran here in Group B. Next up in Group B, I want to talk about Wales. Again, another one of those teams that I think a lot of people are writing off, especially ahead of the first group stage match versus the United States. This is a team that, again, has been really successful at their last couple of major tournaments that they have played a role in. This is a team that mixes in a lot of old players, of course, led by Gareth Bale. Just led LAFC to an MLS Cup victory. Thrilling game that was versus Philadelphia. Of course, he scored there late on in stoppage time. Then you think about someone like an Aaron Ramsey as well, who's got a lot of experience playing at the top levels of professional soccer. They're mixing in some young players as well. You think about Dan James, recently at Manchester United, of course, now they're at Fulham. And you think about someone like an Ethan Ampadu, formerly of Chelsea, really young, low 20s type of defender who's being mixed in with that group. Like I said, this is a team that has been very successful, despite the fact that a lot of people haven't expected them to go far in these last few major tournaments. Now they're at their first World Cup in 64 years. Can they transfer over that Euro success to the World Cup? You got someone like Bale on your team, that gives you a fighting chance pretty much in any group that you are going to be a part of. He seems to be kind of, ready to go. You got some of these other guys on the roster who are kind of rounding into form. You can't write off Wales from potentially getting out of this group. It's going to be a big deal for them, right? First game there versus the United States. Of course, they've got a matchup with their rivals in England as well on the docket. They're going to be plenty motivated to have some success here in the World Cup. So yeah, don't write off Wales, especially with a guy like Bale, who's still, firing on all cylinders to make some noise here in Group B. Now, of course, let's dive into the two most high-profile teams in this group, starting off with England. I think you can put their roster up there with pretty much anybody else at the World Cup. They are extremely deep at a lot of positions, despite recent injuries. You take a look at the defense there. I mean, they've got still a lot of different right backs that they can plug out there. They don't have to lean on Trent Alexander-Arnold, despite, his kind of slow start to his season there with Liverpool. You think about someone like Kieran Trippier, who's been doing great things at Newcastle as well. Something to look out for. 3 solid goalkeepers as well. In the midfield, it's a youthful one, but plenty of different options, of course, led by Jude Bellingham, who has been the talk of basically world football here over the past few months. So many of the top clubs around the world want his services. He's been doing great things there at Dortmund, and he's going to be leaned upon here to really kind of lead this group. You got Jordan Henderson there as kind of a veteran, but you think about all these other young guys, Mason Mount in there as well, who are going to be leaned upon here by England. Then you look up top, of course, Harry Kane, he's going to be the lead guy. You've got Raheem Sterling there as well, but you also have younger guys, especially someone like Phil Foden, who's having a fantastic start the year for Manchester City, who can really make an impact. And of course, Bukayo Saka as well, trying to kind of, get that bad penalty miss there at the Euros out of his mind, and he can do that by having a great World Cup here for England. Defense, like I said, a little bit of a concern. You have someone like, a Reece James going down with injury. You look at those center backs, right? Harry Maguire, not in form. Then you got someone like a John Stones as well, who's kind of been in and out of the lineup at times there for Manchester City. Ben White could be an option. He's been doing well at Arsenal, but again, you're kind of looking down the list there in terms of potential players there at center back. And of course, Luke Shaw, the only natural left back on the roster as well. That could be something that could play into England down the stretch as they make it further through the tournament. I have no doubt they'll make it out of the group stage. I actually do think they'll are a pretty safe lock if they're able to win this group to win their next round matchup. It's when you get to that quarterfinal stage and you're going up against the very best, do these injuries and lack of depth on the defensive end come back to bite them? Does the offense kind of hit a little bit of a slow patch like they did, or at least a few tournaments ago, or like they've been doing kind of in the Nations League recently as well? But still, when you're talking about some of the favorites at this World Cup, I think there's a pretty solid group of 5 favorites that are going into this tournament, and I think you got to include England as being one of those 5. But of course, the team that most of you are all here for, the United States. Back in the World Cup after missing Russia, led by a very young group of players who have never had that experience before. Again, exciting times here just to have them back and to be in a group that they definitely have a chance to get out of. That first match versus Wales, that pretty much is going to what they're going to lean upon here to see if they can get out of this group. But of course, historically, we know they've been able to grind out results versus England, again, versus Iran. They've got the talent to really take it to that team. They're pretty much healthy up front, which is an important thing as well. You think about, again, Christian Pulisic being the main guy, Giovanni Reina, again, getting healthy. You think about Brendan Aronson, he's on form. Tim Weah as well, also being healthy. These are important cogs to an offensive unit that has a lot of exuberance there, a lot of youth, but also a lot of talent and skill, not like something that the U.S. have had at previous World Cups. You think about that midfield, Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, very, technically sound, but also a lot of strength, a lot of speed that can be utilized to kind of terrorize opponents. Those are the positives, right? What are the big questions going into this tournament for the World Cup for the United States? You got to look at that center back pairing. Walker Zimmerman, he's locked down a spot, but due to injuries to like Miles Robinson and Chris Richards, there's a lot of question marks there as to who will partner with Zimmerman. You could throw in a veteran like Tim Ream, of course, personally biased here in St. Louis. A lot of experience playing in the Premier League, but of course, he's in his mid-30s. Can he keep up with the world's best? Otherwise, then you have to put in someone like Aaron Long, who's not been in the best of form. On the outside, you've got Serginho Dest and Anthony Robinson. Those spots are pretty much locked down. Next to Pulisic and somebody like Reina, who's going to start up top for the U.S.? You could speculate and put Weah there if you're trying to put some of the most informed talent on the field at the same time. You could choose to stick Weah there. He's not a natural striker, but someone still who could help out and play that position. Josh Sargent, of course, that used to basically be his spot. And he started to kind of figure things out a little bit again at Norwich. Do you put him in there? Of course, there's been Jesus Ferreira, who's been speculated as well. Again, you think about the inclusion there of Haji Wright over the likes of Jordan Pefok and Ricardo Pepi. It's a big decision. Could he be the guy? Who knows at this point? But there's a lot of question marks there at the striker position because the U.S. are going to need to find goals in this group. Iran, very compact. Wales, they don't play in a lot of high-scoring games. England, of course, all the talent in the world. Someone's going to have to break through for the United States in order to be successful in this group, and it can't always come from those wide positions. Going to be a lot of excitement. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure. It is the U.S. The group that has been laid out for them is an achievable one. But along with that pressure, I think there's going to be a lot of excitement. Again, this used to be a formality. We took it for granted qualifying for the World Cup. Now, after missing out and after that absence, I guarantee you that these guys are going to be raring and ready to go to make an impact in the return. And for most of them, it's their very first World Cup. So that type of inexperience, sometimes, ignorance is bliss in a good way. And I think that could be the case here for the United States as they look to get out of Group B. All right, next up, we're moving into Group C, starting off with Saudi Arabia. Again, much like Qatar, this is a team made up exclusively of domestic players. Again, a neighboring country to Qatar. So you can't underestimate the factor that they're going to have a lot of fans at these matches. Looking at the previous track record, though, at the World Cups they've been played a part of, I don't think they're going to play a major role in this group. Again, you got to think about maybe the home field advantage might play a little bit of a factor in how they do here. But when you take a look at the quality in the rest of this group, I do not think that they're going to find a way to get out of it. Moving on to Poland, who could consider themselves fortunate to be here at the 2022 World Cup. If you think about it, their first matchup there, they barely made it into the playoff. And then their first matchup was supposed to be against Russia. But because of Russia's attack on Ukraine, they were kicked out of qualification, and Poland were able to move on and eventually win the playoff final to get into the World Cup. They're still led by Robert Lewandowski. It's all about him. There are a couple of other quality players on this roster. Again, you think about someone like Wojciech Szczesny there in goal, but it's still all about Lewandowski, who's having a great year, his first season with Barcelona after making the summer transfer from Bayern Munich. But again, he's getting up there in age, and over the past couple of tournaments, teams have found a way to keep him in check. Is there anybody on Poland who can step up and really, find a way to contribute? Can Lewandowski himself find a way to push through like other individual players have found a way at the World Cups and deliver the goods here for Poland? They're going to be in the mix here in Group C. There's no doubt about that. They're a compact team as well defensively. And Lewandowski, if he is on form, they definitely can find a way to get out of this group. Also going to be in the mix here in Group C is going to be Mexico. Now, of course, they had a little bit of trouble in qualifying there in CONCACAF. There's been calls for Tata Martino to get sacked, but he's still there. Mexico have found a way. And of course, if you think about it, the last two World Cups, Mexico has basically just found a way. They got a solid group of talent there. Of course, Ochoa is going to be back in net. You got someone like Guardado there as well, who's an experienced hand. But of course, up top, you got Chucky Lozano as your main guy. Raul Jimenez, he's had a couple of tough seasons there due to injury. Don't know if he's going to get things going again for Mexico, but this is a team that they have players at each level of their squad who have been able to contribute in World Cups past and who are actually in fine form as well. So again, I think that matchup versus Poland is going to be key. I think you're looking at those two teams there fighting for second spot against the next team I'll talk about here. But Mexico, again, I lean on them just a little bit in terms of their past success at World Cups, finding ways out of tough groups to make it to the knockout stage. But of course, the cream of the crop here in Group C is going to be Argentina. This is a squad that is currently on a 36-match unbeaten run, thanks to an improved defense that goes along, of course, with their always the loaded amount of options that they have in attack. Defensively, they found their goalkeeper there, Emiliano Martinez from Aston Villa. Defensively, again, this is a team that's just gotten a little bit better over the past few years. And of course, again, you think about the guys that they have in attack. You got like Lautaro Martinez from Inter Milan. You got Angel Di Maria, who has always just been available for Argentina, constantly a creator there out wide. But of course, when you've got one of the best players in the world still, even at his advanced age in Lionel Messi, you're always going to be in it. But of course, this could potentially be Messi's last World Cup. That's one of the storylines going into it between him and Cristiano Ronaldo. Can he work with his teammates in order to make it a memorable run, right? They got off the schneid there with that Copa America victory, finally breaking through, winning that country major trophy after a long drought. Can Messi do it again, right? He's got a lot of help in attack. You think about in the midfield, someone like a Leonardo Paredes there as well, who can kind of lock things down as a central midfielder. This is a much improved Argentina team that are in quite a good amount of form, and they got a pretty good group here that I think they're going to be able to top and kind of, kickstart potentially a deep World Cup run. All eyes will be on Messi, of course, but again, in recent years, he has had a couple of other players that he can lean on in important situations to help get the job done. An improved defense, that's always what I've been looking for Argentina to continue to make some noise, going into a World Cup. Now we could see if Lionel Messi can finally get it done, what could potentially be his last run with Argentina. All right, almost halfway done here. Let's take a look at Group D, starting off with a team that, again, much like Saudi Arabia, I don't think is really going to have much of an impact here at the World Cup. That would be Tunisia. Again, solid job by them, once again, finding a way to qualify for the World Cup. The problem is that most of their best players are on the wrong side of 30. You think about Kasri there, formerly of Sunderland, who is kind of their main guy. Again, they just don't have enough firepower, especially in a group with a couple of teams that are expected to be favored in Group D. They're going to sit back defensively, do the best they can to soak up the pressure. They just don't have the quality to get things going here at this World Cup. Next up, then, you got Australia. No more Tim Cahill, of course, with Australia, but still a couple of interesting players on this team, although it does lack a little bit of star power. You think about one of their best players there, and Aiden Hustick, recently coming off of an injury, so that doesn't bode well. A couple former Brighton players here, and Matty Ryan and Aaron Moy, who now is playing at Celtic, are some of the more familiar players on this team. But again, much like Tunisia, they just don't have the quality here to compete with the other two teams in this group. Those two teams, first up, Denmark, coming off of a deep run there at Euro 2020, facing some just amazing amounts of adversity with Christian Eriksen, of course, passing out in one of their games. It's amazing to see him back, thriving at Manchester United and back in this Denmark team ahead of the World Cup. And of course, he is joined by, again, a nice group of players to help out, all the way back from the defense, which they've been able to maintain their composure and compactness there since that Euro 2020 run. Of course, Eriksen will be helping to provide the offensive spark from midfield. Of course, they're still dealing with the fact that they don't really have a true central forward. They've got different players. You think about Damsgaard, Eriksen in the midfield, but they're still looking for that quality up the middle. So that could be a little bit of a problem for them going forward. But spurred on by that deep run at Euro 2020, you've got to like this team's confidence going into this group. Of course, they've got a team in there that's going to give them some problems in terms of maybe winning the whole group. They could potentially do it still, though. But either way, I like for them to get out of Group D and potentially even cause more chaos and confusion once they hit the knockout stage. But of course, the headline team in Group D is the reigning champs themselves in France. France, they're looking to shake off what was an embarrassing early exit from Euro 2020, losing to Switzerland there. And they've got, of course, the talent to do it. Much like I talked about with England, this is a team that you would put up with any other team at the World Cup when it comes to their depth and the amount of quality that they have in the team, led, of course, by the reigning Ballon d'Or winner there in Karim Benzema, and, of course, Kylian Mbappe, someone who is considered to be one of the best players in the world. The offense there is there, of course. Hugo Lloris still in net. Defensively, a mixture now of some younger talent with some of the old heads returning to this team. The concern, though, is a little bit in the midfield. It's not as deep as it has been. That's because two big names are noticeably missing due to injury. N'Golo Kante from Chelsea, and, of course, Paul Pogba. Not having those guys has created a lot of questions whether or not France can keep up in that part of the pitch. They got so many attacking talents. I didn't even mention, Antoine Griezmann, Olivier Giroud, Ousmane Dembele, these types of guys up top, Kingsley Coman, for France up top, that they can score so many goals. But can they lock things down in the midfield? Rafael Varane, he's coming off some injury as well. Defensively, can they be as solid as they have been? It's incredibly, incredibly difficult to repeat as World Cup champions. It's not been done in a very, very long time. And with these injuries, I'm not sure France are going to be able to do it, but you can't count them out. Like I said, I think they're part of that group of 5 favorites just because of the talent that they still have. And that has been the thing. They're an incredibly deep team for a reason. It's been a little bit tested here going into the World Cup, but you still got Benzema, you still got Mbappe. I like France to go deep in this tournament. All right, up next, Group E, going to start off with Japan. Japan, they've been a constant presence at the World Cup. This is their 7th straight appearance. And again, that can't be taken lightly in terms of them being written off in this group. Obviously, when it comes to this group in particular, there are 2 teams that stand out, but Japan, they have found a way to get results, in past World Cups. Think about some of the options that they have in Kamada and then Minamino there at Monaco are a couple of different, players who can provide some goals. Outside of that, though, it is going to be really difficult for them to stay in games. Don't want to completely write them off here, but they are most likely not going to be able to find a way to get out of this group. In a similar position, you got to take a look at Costa Rica. Again, they are led by Keylor Navas. He's doing some great things still for his national team. Hasn't gotten the playing time as of late at PSG, but still is kind of the heartbeat of this Costa Rica team. They're still depending upon a lot of, old heads there. You think about Oviedo, Brian Ruiz. They're still there for this Costa Rica team. You got someone also like a Joel Campbell who's being dependent upon. But like I said, this is an incredibly tough group for them and Japan. Costa Rica, of course, you remember they had tremendous success at 2014. Nobody expected them to get as far as they did, but I don't see the same magic happening this time around. That, of course, leaves us with the 2 headline teams in Group E. Going to start off with Spain. The transition to the next generation of players is pretty much complete here. If you think about it, like Sergio Busquets is probably the biggest name that is the holdover from, those great, the 2010, World Cup winning team there. Jordi Alba also still involved, but this is a group of players. Again, the transition has pretty much been made. Think about it. No David De Gea for this team, this roster going into this World Cup. It'll be a completely kind of different set of players from that front. But if you look into, again, the midfield and attack, there are some really exciting young players for the Spanish team. Think about Pedri. Again, he continues to chug along for Barcelona. Had a fantastic Euro 2020, was one of the best, if not the best young player at that tournament. He has continued that form into his club season. He's going to be a big part of this midfield for Spain. Player who didn't get to feature there at the Euros because due to injury, Ansu Fati, another youngster there from Barcelona. Extremely exciting young player. These are a couple of guys who are going to lead Spain for years to come. You think about some of the veterans as well. Alvaro Morata still there. You got Ferran Torres, who provided some help there for Spain in Euro 2020. But the problem is behind some of these guys, the lack of depth. And again, Morata not in the greatest of form. They still haven't really been able to find, that star striker to help kind of bring everything together within this style of play. That could be a problem for them kind of going forward. If Pedri gets hurt, or again, a couple of the other really important players in this team get hurt, Spain could be actually in some trouble. But still, the way that they play, Luis Enrique as their manager has had tremendous success basically wherever he has gone. This is a team that, you're going to like to get out of this group in Group A and potentially, depending upon the matchup and how things go, could find themselves going further on in the tournament. And lastly, in Group E, got to talk about Germany. Hansi Flick now takes over in place of Jogi Löw. And of course, he's got a lot of talent at his disposal. Think about some of the regulars there. Manuel Neuer back in goal. Antonio Rudiger in defense. Thomas Muller, Joshua Kimmich in midfield. Mario Götze back for another World Cup run with Germany. Then you've got a lot of new players, right? Kai Havertz, Leroy Sané, Serge Gnabry, Jamal Musiala there for Bayern Munich. Then someone like 17-year-old Yusufa Mukoko, who's been having a fantastic start to his career and kind of a little bit surprise inclusion, but someone who could be a lightning rod there for Germany. A lot of attacking options, defense, a little bit of a concern next to Rudiger. There just hasn't been as much consistency. Germany haven't really been able to develop, guys out wide on the right and left backs or someone next to Rudiger who can really be depended upon. You got Nicholas Sewell there as maybe an option, but otherwise, a lot of question marks there in defense. So, of course, this is a team that is trying to put that 2018 World Cup disaster behind them when they couldn't even get out of the group stage. So a lot of pressure on this Germany team, but I think they're flying a little bit under the radar when it comes to the favorites here at this World Cup, and that could help them out. Obviously, it'll be a big match versus Spain in order to determine who wins that group, but I like them in Spain to find a way to get out of this group. But Germany, again, if their young players can kind of mesh quickly with the veterans, they could be one of those favorites here at the World Cup. Moving on to Group F, going to start off with Morocco. Under new management here, Morocco have actually been an improved side. There was a little bit of problems with the previous manager, had to get rid of him. A lot of players, had kind of been ousted. Hakim Ziyech honestly retired from international football with Morocco, one of their top players, and of course, right now at Chelsea. But he has been brought back into the fold, and since that point, Morocco have found a way to kind of right the ship and get themselves in the right mindset going into this World Cup. Ziyech and then Achraf Hakimi there are going to be the top two guys. Hakimi, of course, doing great things at PSG out there on the right flank. He's going to be a creative force going up and down the field. Of course, Ziyech is a great playmaker as well. Those two guys, can they propel this Morocco team to a surprise and getting out of this group? It's going to be a difficult one. There's a one headline team, and then there are a couple other, interesting storylines and teams in this group. Morocco, though, if they get the production from those two guys and they get some support as well, could make things interesting in Group F. A great thing about World Cups is always seeing new teams, or at least teams that have been gone for a long time. We talked about Wales, first one in 64 years. How about a first World Cup in 36 years for Canada? Exciting to see them. Again, they finished the top of CONCACAF. A little bit of surprise there, but this is a team that's kind of been building over the last few years. You think about just this duo alone, Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David, two very exciting creative players for Canada, are going to lead this side. You can think about someone about Laren up top, some of the other guys, even some MLS guys, which is going to be the cool thing. Think about like Mark Anthony Kaye helped build this Canada team through the middle. Just kind of a little bit of a wild card in this group, right? Again, first World Cup in 36 years. Again, like I talked about with the United States, a lot of guys that don't have that World Cup experience who have never been. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. It could go either way. But in this group, it's exciting to see Canada join the fray. When you got someone like Davies with that blinding pace, David with his quality, some of these other guys that offer a lot of speed could cause some headaches for the other teams in this group. Up next, we've got Croatia. Now, of course, they've still got a few players over from that World Cup final team back in 2018. Again, Luka Modric still growing strong. You think about Brozovic. You also think about Mateo Kovacic as well. Ivan Perisic, a lot of guys still on this team that have coming over from that 2018 team and have stayed with Croatia, through the Euros and through other big tournaments as well. They've still been looking for a replacement there back in net for Daniel Subasic. Also, again, a lot of younger defenders have been implemented since that World Cup run back in 2018. So a couple of different moving parts have a few questions being asked of Croatia right now. But if you're talking about a team that just finds a way and still has a lot of experience on this team, you got to like Croatia at least being in the mix here in this group to get out and make it to the knockout stage. But of course, the big name team in this group is Belgium, that golden generation. Can they finally push through and win a major trophy? The biggest one of all, of course, the World Cup. A lot of them right now, they're either up there in age, they've been hurt, they're just not in good form. But two guys really help lead this Belgium team. You think about Thibaut Courtois, one of the best, if not the best goalkeepers in the world. And then Kevin De Bruyne, he is right up there in terms of the best midfielders in the world. Those two guys, Belgium can just go a long way based off of the talent of those two, but they're going to need some help. Think about this team. What made them so great was that they had so many different star players. Well, now guys like Romelu Lukaku and Eden Hazard, they've either been hurt, they've been out of form, they've been changing teams. It hasn't been as pretty as it was, a few years ago, or at least a few major tournaments ago. Those old heads back there in defense, you think about Vertonghen, Toby Alderweireld, they're way up there in age. They just don't have the depth anymore that they used to. So Belgium, they're going to have to get big time performances out of Courtois and out of De Bruyne, and then someone like a Lukaku or an Hazard or somebody else in the midfield has got to find a way to step up and supplement those guys, score some goals. In terms of Belgium going forward, I like their chances out of this group, but other than that, I don't know if they have the quality like they once did. So again, with this golden generation, it could be a sad song here at this World Cup. Up next, Group G. Want to start off with Cameroon. This is a team that kind of lacks some star power. They do have someone like an Andre Onana from Inter Milan in goal. Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, of course, his experience with PSG, but they just don't have quite the quality that they used to. Of course, they don't have someone like Samuel Eto'o, who, of course, led the line for so many years, was a star player for them. They just don't have anybody like that anymore. They're a chaotic team, essentially, how they play offensively, how they play defensively. If they can catch lightning in a bottle, maybe they make some noise. But when it comes to the rest of the teams in this group, I don't think they will find a way to make it out. Moving on to Serbia, I think this is a very dangerous team with many attacking options. You think about someone like a Sergej Milikinovic-Savic, who was really looking at a big-time move away from Napoli here just recently over the last year or two. Someone like a Filip Kostic, Dusan Tadic, of course, of Ajax, still leading things there for Serbia. Alexander Mitrovic for Fulham did wonders for them to get them back up to the Premier League and is having similar types of success. And of course, then another big man, Dusan Vlahovic, who made the big move to Juventus, who's been scoring goals for them as well. A lot of talent there. They, of course, had some old heads move on. You think about Alexander Kolarov, formerly of Manchester City, Branislav Ivanovic from Chelsea. Those guys have retired and moved on. So defensively, they're still making some changes. But with that type of talent, this is going to be an interesting team. Can they translate that talent to this tournament along with an evolving defense? But again, on paper, this is a team that's going to cause some chaos, I think. There's a lot of options. They can grind out results, and they're going to be in a mix here to get out of Group G. The other team they're going to be battling with to get out of this group is Switzerland. This is a team that I think, for as long as we have seen them, or as long as I've had the pleasure of watching them, they have always been defined by the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? They don't have anyone that particularly stands out. You think about Xherdan Shaqiri, maybe for a little while offensively. Granit Xhaka right now could be another name, but for the most part, this is a team that is built on sturdiness in the midfield and sturdiness in defense for them to find a way to get results. They had success at Euro 2020. Can they replicate that here, despite the fact that they still don't have a true goal scoring forward up top? I think Breel Mbolo is going to get the shot there for Switzerland, but we'll have to see. If they can score some goals, I think they can match that with their defensive quality and find a way to get out of this group. But if they can't, if they continue to struggle, big match there versus Serbia, I think a team with a lot of offensive talent. If they can keep them away and just poach a goal, then maybe. But otherwise, they will have to scrap and claw to get themselves out of this group. And lastly, the favorites in Group G have to be Brazil. Again, this is a team that is stacked at pretty much every level of the roster. You think about it, even just at goal, you've got Alisson from Liverpool and Ederson from Manchester City. One of those guys can't play at any point in time for Brazil. A lot of nations would love to have one of those guys be their starting goalkeeper. But Brazil are blessed there. They are blessed everywhere. It starts, of course, with Neymar, again, in fine form for PSG. Once the opportunity kind of, right the wrongs there of 2014, not being able to finish things out there with Brazil at the time. He's joined by plenty of attacking talent. You think about Vinicius Jr., who's really come on at Real Madrid. I expect him to be right there with Neymar in terms of the goals. You got Richarlison as well, who made the move to Tottenham, still in fine form. You took a look at the defense experience there. Talked about Alisson and net. You got Thiago Silva. You got Marquinhos. You got someone like an Eder Militao as well who can help out centrally there. Dani Alves, more there for the vibes than anything. I mean, I think, 38 years old, basically brought out of retirement. I think he's just going to be there to kind of provide support. I don't know how much he will be involved, but still having someone like Alves back into the team is going to be a big plus for Brazil. Basically, I think the talent is there. The coaching is there. Does this team have the intangibles to make it further into the tournament? We've seen them in the past. They capitulate when things go wrong. They've had kind of a little bit of a breeze going through CONMEBOL qualifying. Once they go up against, especially some of Europe's best, can they find a way to imprint their style in these games and not get put off if something were to go wrong? Otherwise, again, one of the 5 teams that I think should be favored for this World Cup. They've got the past pedigree, of course. You think about also the vibes. Honestly, the last World Cup that was in an Asian country, 2002, South Korea, who won that one? That would be Brazil over Germany. So the vibes are there. Can Brazil put it all together and be one of those last few teams fighting for this World Cup? And of course, the last group at this 2022 FIFA World Cup is Group H. One first off, start with South Korea. This, of course, is about one main man in general. That would be Tottenham's Son Heung-min. He is the guy that stirs the drink for South Korea. He's their main offensive weapon. He can do everything, score goals, create chances, but he doesn't have a lot of talent around him. That is why I think it's going to be South Korea's downfall in this group. It's a pretty, deep group that they've been drawn into. Defense is going to be tested. They can't give up a lot of goals. They want to protect that goal difference. And then, of course, Son Heung-min is going to have a fantastic tournament for them to have a chance. Unfortunately, like I said, not enough talent around him there. I think South Korea is going to play a major role in Group H. Then you've got Ghana. I think Ghana's strength is in their midfield, led by Thomas Partey. There's a defensive holding midfielder. Then you've got Mohamed Kudus as well, who's a little bit more creative. In terms of offensive support, you've got the Ayew brothers there in Jordan and Andre. And Naki Williams, joining up with this team, I think will present some challenges for their opponents and make them a little bit harder to defend. However, of course, defensively, not as strong. And I think this team inconsistency is a little bit of a problem. It might be their downfall. They just lack the technical ability and some of the other players that they've had over the years at past World Cups that truly make them a cohesive unit. There are definitely players there for them to, create some chances here and maybe potentially get out of this group. But when it comes to the other two teams, I think they just lack a little something extra that will help them advance out of the group stage. Up next, you've got Uruguay. Uruguay, they're still leaning on some of those old heads. You think about Luis Suarez and Edson Cavani. Now they're joined by Darwin Nunez, who just made the recent big money move to Liverpool. So if you think about that there, that is a star-studded group of strikers that Uruguay can lean upon. Defensively, still led by their captain. I mean, close to being 40 years old, Diego Godin. He's still got Jose Jimenez as a guy that he can lean upon next to him. You got Musaara there, still in net. But with Uruguay, you also think about someone like a Federico Valverde of Real Madrid as well, being a key cog in the midfield. So they got to find the right balance between the younger players and, of course, the experienced players. They're not going to be able to play all of Suarez, Cavani, and Nunez. Nunez, of course, maybe a little bit younger and a little bit more in form. So if he's in the lineup, how do you implement Suarez and how do you implement Cavani? Do one of them join Nunez? Do they all have to sit out? What's the deal there? Finding the right balance with this team and getting the quality from other places on the pitch will be important for Uruguay to have a deep run. Of course, we can't doubt their success at past World Cups. They usually find a way to get out of the group stage and potentially even further. We will have to see if this group has similar success this time around. Then lastly, we have Portugal. Again, this is a team that's been building up its depth over the past few years. Think about the defense. You got João Cancelo and Ruben Dias from Manchester City. In the midfield, you got Bruno Fernandes, not having the best of seasons at Manchester United, but the quality is still kind of there. Bernardo Silva, also at Manchester City. And on offense, you've got João Felix still trying to break through with the Atletico Madrid. And of course, Rafael Leao from AC Milan having a fantastic start to his Serie A season. He's been doing wonders there for Milan as well. But of course, who's the main guy still in his fifth and potentially final World Cup? It's Cristiano Ronaldo, who made some buzz here over the past couple of weeks with a huge interview there, just talking about basically blasting Manchester United, Eric Ten Hag, and again, previous management as well, not wanting him, talked about him storming off pitch early, just his in general, just attitudes and frustrations and angers with Manchester United. It was a pretty eye-opening interview. He said a lot of tough things that easily could be taken the wrong way. And I don't think it was the best idea for that interview to be released right before the World Cup. Can he kind of put that away and not let that hurt his performance and the rest of his team? It's still Ronaldo. I know he's, getting up there in age and he's not been the best of form and all this other extra, nonsense is not helping. But when it comes time for Portugal, he usually finds a way to deliver. With all this other talent around him, I think if he can, get himself right, Portugal can find a way to not only get out of this group, but potentially make a deep run here at the World Cup. So those are my thoughts on each team ahead of them competing at the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Now I want to get to my picks as to who I think will get out of the group stage. Starting off in Group A, I like the Netherlands to win the group, and then I'm going to take Ecuador to finish in second. The Sadio Mane news, unfortunately, has put me off Senegal there in terms of their chances of getting out of the group. Group B, I'm going with England to win. And I'm picking the United States to finish in second. Again, I just think they're going to find a way to get the right result against Wales. Maybe do something against England. It's more of a hopeful kind of vibe than anything else, but beat Iran and find a way to finish in second. Then in Group C, I'm going to go with Argentina to win the group, Mexico to finish in second, just ahead of Poland. Group D, I still think France has too much talent. I like them to win the group. Denmark, of course, with their quality and coming off of a great run at Euro 2020, I've got them finishing in second. Moving on to Group E, it's obviously, I think in my mind, and everyone's picking this one probably to be Spain and Germany, but I like Germany to win this group. I think they will get the better of the result versus Spain. I like the totality of that team. I think with Spain, having to lean upon a couple of more, younger guys and more pressing positions, I think Germany, with their quality, their team dynamic, they find a way to win that group, rebounding off of 2018. Then moving into Group F, I'll take Belgium still to win that group. I'll take Croatia to take second. I think Canada and Morocco make things a little bit difficult, but still, Croatia and that experience, you can't deny that. Group G, Brazil, I think they win this group pretty easily. Finishing in behind them, though, I've got Serbia finding a way to break through versus Switzerland, just like that attacking group of players there to find a way. And then lastly, in Group H, I'm going to take Portugal to win the group, and then I'm going to take Uruguay to finish in second. I think they just have a little bit more talent there than the likes of Ghana and South Korea in order to find a way to advance out of that group. A few different things when it comes to the bracket. Obviously, if things kind of play out the way that I think, it'll be the Netherlands versus the U.S. in the next stage, the knockout stage. With the U.S., obviously, they've got a ton of, exciting offensive talent, but going up against the likes of Virgil van Dijk and that Dutch defense, I just don't think they're going to find a way. And then the defense trying to hold up against the likes of Memphis Depay, some of the other players on that Netherlands team. I think the U.S., unfortunately, they'll take it out of the group stage and maybe, pressing their luck against a quality opponent in the next round. But I think if they go up against the Netherlands, the Dutch are going to find a way to win that one. In the end, through how the bracket works out, I will have a final four there of some just mouth-watering matchups. We could get something like a Spain versus a Portugal, a Brazil versus Argentina, different, world-dominating teams on each side of the bracket. In the end, though, my pick for the final is going to be, interestingly enough, Brazil versus Portugal. Just how the bracket kind of plays out. I think Brazil, top to bottom, one of the most talented teams in this World Cup. Coaching, players, I think it's all there. They find a way to get to the final. Portugal, same thing. They've built up that depth. They've had experience in past, big runs at major tournaments. I think they find a way again. Ronaldo, not necessarily leading the way, but helping out with a bunch of great players here. I think Brazil then takes the final by a score of 1-0. Again, building off of some of those vibes. I think because of the setting, the European teams, they're still going to do pretty well, but I think that the setting is going to throw them off just a little bit. We've seen, again, teams and guys coming off of this busy schedule into this World Cup. I think it's going to play a big difference. Guys who have been playing in some of the bigger leagues across Europe are going to have a little bit of tough time adjusting here at this World Cup, I think, and that could really help out teams like from South America and from other places as well. So going with Brazil, it's a trendy pick, but like I said, I think that they're in a group of teams like France, like England. Maybe you could throw in an Argentina then there potentially as some of the favorites at this World Cup. But I just think Brazil, they've got the star power, they've got the quality. I just think it's about intangibles and a mental standpoint. If they can figure that out, I don't think there are many teams that are going to stop them. So that's going to do it for my World Cup preview. We're just a few days away from the kickoff there between Qatar and Ecuador. Again, very excited for this tournament. Looking forward to, again, seeing the broadcast teams, how things are done, and looking forward to some really quality soccer here over the holidays. It's a little different. Not sure it's going to be the best thing in the world, but still, getting to be home potentially here and get to watch some soccer at the highest level. Can't get much better than that. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Gateway to Soccer Show. I know I've been gone for a while, but appreciate you kind of stopping back in and checking in on things ahead of this World Cup. Before I go, I want to say really quickly again, just enjoy all the content coming back home regarding St. Louis City SC. So much excitement now. The next MLS season will be the debut season. I just saw, of course, City Park getting debuted this week. City versus Bayer Leverkusen. Who would have thought, right? Just some beautiful pictures and video. I'm very happy for the city of St. Louis, all the fans out there getting to enjoy that moment. We're going to be making a lot of moments here over the next few months. You can just had the expansion draft, free agency about to start in MLS. Maybe a few more surprises up the sleeves there of Lutz Pfannenstiel and the rest of that front office there for St. Louis City SC. The kit just dropped. It looks magnificent. Can't wait to pick one up myself. But again, overall, in terms of the coverage from back home, all the different podcasts and the fan input, it's been fantastic. Keep it going. It helps people out like myself who are away for a little bit to be able to keep up with the team. Hope to be home a couple of times here over the next couple of months for breaks, but things are going well here in Fayette. But excited for the city of St. Louis, for St. Louis City SC, and for the coming months ahead. So just wanted to drop that one in there. Thank you all for watching, for continuing to support me in my journey. Again, really looking forward to a fantastic World Cup. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Who knows when the next drop will be, but appreciate you all tuning in. Here's to a fantastic World Cup. Go, go USA. And thank you all for watching.